Good morning. Good morning. Firstly, I just want to say how bloody excited I am to be here. This is awesome. It's so great to see so many old friends that we've met in the last few years and make lots of new friends as well with all of you guys. I hope I get to meet everyone in the next few days. Even briefly, what I'm going to present today is the kind of past, present, and future of the European kombucha market. A lot of kind of facts, I guess, a lot of history. But some people say, to know who you are, you kind of have to know where you've come from. So just a little bit on my own background, just a bit of relevance on me. I was first introduced to kombucha back in 2012 when I lived in Australia. I now live in the UK, but I remember just being so blown away when I drank my first kombucha. I was like, holy shit, it stopped me in the street almost. And it's kind of taken me on this journey ever since, and I never thought I'd end up speaking to 250 people in Berlin. But I ended up working for Remedy Kombucha from Australia, and subsequently helped them bring their business to Europe and set their business up in the UK. I call that period of time in my life my kombucha MBA. It was super fast-paced, super intense, lots of energy, but it was awesome. There was so many deep learnings I took away from that as well, which was really, really great. That led me to when I finished with Remedy, it was really, really clear that there was a need in the market in Europe particularly, and globally for people to help kombucha brewers and kombucha companies and kombucha brands just like yourselves. So I ended up connecting with Sebastian Bureau from Mananova Solutions in Canada, who's one of the world's leading kombucha scientists. We partnered together, and he was also super passionate about helping people. So I ended up setting up Good Culture Kombucha here in Europe. That was about 2 years ago. In the past 12 months alone, we've run professional kombucha brewers workshops. We've helped well over 100 kombucha companies at this stage with their processes and technologies, and just kind of getting those guys upskilled. We also distribute kombucha culture. We call it Manake. That helps kombucha companies scale up their production and solve alcohol issues. We've got some of that downstairs today as well. We've got some kombucha that we've made using it. Feel free to take a bottle from the fridge. It's the yellow bottles. And something new we're working on, we get a lot of inquiries from brands that don't want to own breweries, but want to own a kombucha brand. So we're working with, and we're developing a network of kombucha manufacturers and brewers across Europe, and actually further afield as well, where we partner brands with really credible kombucha breweries to create some really amazing brands as well. So that's good. And now we've partnered with Fabio and Rupert from Roy to create the Kombucha Summit. So we're pretty busy. So if I take you back, way back into the past of kombucha in Europe. Kombucha kind of first came on the scene in Europe back in the 1900s. Obviously people know kombucha came from China, but then it moved into Russia, and from Russia it moved into Eastern Europe. It was first documented in the literature in Germany in 1913 as a secret Russian recipe. As we went through World War I, there wasn't much tea or sugar available, but after that, kind of kombucha came back to life again. In 1927, it was actually available for sale in pharmacies in Germany called Mogu, which is the Chinese word for mushroom. There was also a patent filed the same year for using kombucha in medicine in Germany as well. Just full disclosure, I in no way consider myself a kombucha historian whatsoever. I was only introduced to this information a few days ago. I reached out to Tadeusz from Barbucha Kombucha, where you'll go tomorrow, and I said, could you help me out? We've got, I want to share something about the past. And he just hit me with so much information. This is just high level. I think he's definitely got a book in him, or at least we might give him the opportunity to come up here next year and talk actually in more detail about the history of kombucha in Europe. I think it'd be quite an interesting topic. If we jump forward into Germany in 1960, for about 30 years, there was a Dr. Rudolf Schellner, who was treating cancer patients with kombucha for 30 years and did a lot of research on that. Subsequently, his niece ended up writing the first book on kombucha in 1985. That book led to, in the 90s, to an explosion of other books all across Europe in many different languages. I think all of these books are probably Tadu's from his bookshelf in Barbucha. But then, there was a range of really medicinal kombuchas on the market in Europe in the early 90s. All of these 3 brands are still available today, but they're not like super commercial style kombuchas. They're like really medicinal, really acidic, 15 grams of sugar. I won't even dare try pronounce those names. There's actually Carpe Diem, actually was founded in Austria in the early 90s, which ended up being bought by Red Bull, and you still see that brand around Europe today. That's an early photograph of it. From there, that was the kind of all medicinal kombucha up till now. And then you see, just for reference, in the US in 1995, there was GT's Kombucha came on the scene. In 2003, there's a brand called Go Kombucha. It was created by a guy called Gary from the UK. This brand is still available today in the UK and does quite well. This was like the first European commercial kombucha that was actually like appealing to a broader audience. Then some other notable brands, early brands, was Karma Kombucha from France. Those guys have been around for a very long time, making really good traditional style kombucha. And they still are doing well today. And also notably, Barbucha was created in Berlin in 2014. There's lots of other brands that I'd love to mention as well, but we gotta go with the time. So that kind of leads up to like the present day, 2019, where we are today. And just kind of, it's worth noting, like, there's been an explosion of brands all over Europe in the last few years, like all of you guys out here and many, many more. For lots of startups happening right across Europe now. And some brands are doing really, really fantastic things. I thought it was just worth mentioning some brands that we've kind of like noted out there that are doing some cool stuff. These guys, Emmett and Keith from All About Kombucha in Ireland, who are here somewhere, guys. These guys have only been around for like 2 years, but they've built their own brewery in Ireland, and only within the last few weeks they've launched in 139 Aldi stores in Ireland. So they're going from strength to strength, and I think they're going to go on to do some really great things. We see in Barcelona there's a really beautiful premium vegan restaurant called Flax and Kale. In the middle of their restaurant, they've built a really like experiential kombucha experience, which they call the Kombucha Lab, which is really like a showpiece for their brand, their beautiful kombucha brand, which I must say is really nice. We've been lucky enough to host some of our events in the past 12 months there as well. Back in March, we had an event there in October as well. That's super awesome. If you're in Barcelona, I'd highly recommend going and checking that place out. These guys, we see these guys. I don't know these guys, but I see them on like Instagram. They're like building a super awesome brand in Belgium. They're here somewhere. They look like they'd be really good guys to party with tonight. Comvita from south of Spain are here. We see these guys on. They've got like the best like social media presence in Europe. They'd win the Kombucha Instagram awards, and they're doing really good things. They're building a really good brand in Spain. So, Firm Kombucha, also in Belgium. These guys are doing really cool things, building a good brand. They've just invested in a big new brewery, Shiny Brewery in Bruges, and they're going to go from strength to strength. An ambitious brand. But that's kind of like a look across Europe. Really, if you look into the market in Europe, the kind of like the heat of the European market is really happening in London and in the UK right now. That's where there's so many brands there. There's so much activity. We've actually got Sophie from Planet Organic, who's the leading organic retailer in the UK, here today to talk to you guys later on about her unique perspective on that market. But you see all the leading kind of global big kombucha brands are all in London right now, and they're all kind of like grappling for the same space. You got GTs are there now, Hum Kombucha from the US, Alobros from Australia, Remedy from Australia, Kavita from the US as well. They're all kind of got their sights on the European market. They've got well-developed brands, good stories, good presence, and like lots of money to to build their brands, right? What I really wanted to do today was kind of like share some market data with you guys, because I know as I talk to all of you, some of you say, oh, it's hard to break into the retailers in my city, my region, my country. They don't understand the market, they don't understand kombucha, they don't understand the potential of what we're doing. So I've been lucky enough some people have shared some really good data with me in the last few weeks. If you ask, you receive. And this is data from the UK large retailers. Okay, so IRI data, which tracks all the major retailers in the UK, where we've seen a lot of launches in the last 12 months. Before 12 months ago, there was no kombucha in any of the major supermarkets in the UK, but in the last 12 months, they've all kind of managed to get in, or a lot of them have managed to get in. So this slide looks at the last 12 months from Nielsen, back from August. It tells us that number one kombucha is the leading kombucha brand in the big supermarkets in the UK, and in the past 12 months, they've done nearly 700,000 in sales alone. This is quickly followed by Lobros, Kavita, and Equinox, and Remedy. What's quite encouraging, actually, to look at that is that 2 of the top 5 brands are actually UK-owned brands. They're not the big global, dominant brands. Even the number one kombucha is a UK-owned brand. So, they're not exactly muscling everyone out, right? If we look at the same data, well, not the same data, but if you just look at over a 12-week period previous to that, Remedy Kombucha had some new listings in March, and it shows that Remedy in 3 months did £450,000 in sales in the big retailers in the UK. And in a 3-month period, that would put them on track to do almost £2 million in sales in a 12-month period. Another data set that I've been sent, which is from IRI, who also track big retail numbers, tells a slightly different story. So it's interesting that these different data companies are getting slightly different results. This data tells us that Equinox Kombucha sold nearly 800,000 in sales in the past 12 months. So those guys are doing exceptionally well, followed by number one Kombucha. Some of the other data they've picked up as well is that 275 milliliter bottles are the leading format, followed by 250 ml, which I'm guessing is a can. They say that 90% of all kombucha is sold in glass bottles. Not surprisingly, 65% of all kombucha sold is in ginger. So if you're not launching a ginger kombucha, it's at your own detriment. This is UK data. There is no European kombucha data available because there is no other big brands available in big retailers. It's just, yeah. What I think would be quite interesting is like to be here in 12 months' time and see where things have changed or how things are moving. And as some of the other guys kind of move into other retail opportunities across Europe, to kind of capture that and share that as well. I think it's going to be interesting to track the journey of this. So that if we kind of like step into, that brings us up to the present day. If we step into the future, there's forecast data, market forecast data. There's a market research company here today, actually. But this is two sets of data. One is the global data, which is the big blue line, that says by 2025 the global kombucha market's going to be worth $8 billion, right? I don't know where they get these numbers from. I don't know how they kind of extrapolate that. But it's basically saying that the kombucha market is growing at 25%, a rate of 25% compound rate year on year. At the moment, the European market would be worth 350 million in revenue at retail. I think that's probably quite optimistic. My sense is that it's probably below the 200, maybe 150 million. But it's also forecasting that by 2025, so in 6 years' time, that us as the kombucha industry in Europe, our current economy is going to grow by $1 billion in the next 6 years. Just in terms of awareness, we talk to a lot of brands all over the world, some from the largest brands to the smallest. We've kind of been privy to some data, and a lot of the brands tell us that consumer awareness is still very, very low. That even in the markets like the US and Australia, where kombucha is widely available, that consumer awareness is still below 10%. And I was in Australia 2 weeks ago and asked everyone, "Oh, do you drink much kombucha?" And most people had never heard of it. And these are my friends. So when I told them what I do for a job, they thought it was just weird. But so estimates in the UK would be sub 5%, Europe 2%, South America, Asia. We're talking like less than 1%, like consumer awareness. So it's got a hell of a long way to go. If you want to know what 10% consumer awareness looks like in Australia, this was one supermarket, one medium-sized supermarket in Sydney that I was in 2 weeks ago, and they have an enormous amount of space, like dominated by kombucha. It's actually unbelievable. I hadn't been there in 2 years. And it's unbelievable to go back and see how much has changed and how much the market can really shift. Some of the things that are kind of in our favor as an industry, and some of the kind of like consumer data that's saying there's changes in taste and changes in behavior, says that 1 in 5 consumers now do not drink alcohol. 1 in 3 are moderating their alcohol. And for those who don't drink but still like to socialize, they say 43% of those think that a soda or a soft drink is their best alternative to alcohol. So, there's a lot of opportunity there to offer better alternatives in that space. This might be a bit hard to see this over here, but basically what it says, Mintel research, it says that consumers 54% of all German consumers are taking functional foods or functional drinks to maintain digestive health. So it is on their radar, but it may not be kombucha. It could be in other ways, other probiotic type of ways. Also, down here, it says that juice sales, this is really significant actually. Juice sales are declining just in the last 12 months alone by 4.1%, which is mostly led by consumer concern over sugar content in what they're consuming. And so if we look at this, What had to go for this to come in? Juice. So the juice is getting like pushed off the end of the shelf, and kombucha is moving in. That's Sydney, Australia. That's one supermarket in Sydney. Which? Sorry, that one there was European wide. Okay, IRI data from 16th of June. Some of the kind of like just general trends we're seeing in the market as well. There's so many brands just like jumping into cans right now. It's a really like good format to be in. It can reduce your costs. You can reach broader markets, yeah, it's really good. And we're seeing a lot of kombucha companies all over Europe have been investing in canning machines in the last 6 to 12 months, and yeah, there's so much opportunity in that. We know a lot of kombucha manufacturers as well who've got canning machines who'd love to fill them up with other brands. Cost reasons, reach of market, so you can mail them out, they won't smash. Also, what's that? Preservation. Yeah. Yep, yeah. Yeah, you can, we can ask Sebastian, but it might increase your shelf life slightly as well. Also, I guess, arguably, aluminium is infinitely recyclable. That it might use up a lot of energy to get there, but it is infinitely recyclable. We're seeing some hard alcoholic kombucha step onto the market in Europe. This is a brand in the UK, which is now available in Sainsbury's, which is one of the large retailers in the UK, Bootleg Booch, which is actually created by Lowbros from Australia. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for that in the years to come. We're seeing a big movement towards sugar-free kombucha. Number One Kombucha from the UK has just launched a range of cans this week, which is sugar-free, which kind of like, from a marketing perspective, I guess it works quite well for those who are trying to choose a healthier drink, but also reduce their sugar intake. No, and the challenge around that, we could get quite technical on this, but to achieve a sugar-free formulation, you still need to sweeten it. So you might use erythritol or stevia, but stevia is not permissible as an alcohol or as an organic certified ingredient in the European Union. Is that all right? Cool. We're also seeing some like hyper innovation happening. So like kombucha brands that have been successful are now kind of like thinking about their shelf space and dominating as much fridge space as they possibly can, basically. So just use Remedy as an example, but there's other brands who are doing similar. So they obviously have their core range of kombucha. Their flavors are expanding, widely in that. In the last 12 months, they've launched all of these products. Switchel, which is another way of saying apple cider vinegar-based drink. Coconut water kefir. They've created a good energy kombucha. The next slide covers that, actually. And now they've launched another range of what we call like lightly fermented sodas. So they're sugar-free sodas, which are kind of like takes on your classic Coke, lemonade, ginger ales, ginger beers, orange drinks, lemon, lime, and bitters, which is like an interesting segue from kombucha. I think for other brands, I think that offers like a really nice... it's not necessarily kombucha, but from a consumer point of view, it kind of offers a nice alternative. We're seeing a number of brands. We met some guys, the guys from Russia who were here yesterday. They've got a coffee kombucha, really, really good, but slightly strong. Coffee kombucha. And we've seen Equinox Kombucha from the UK have launched an espresso coffee in the last couple of months as well, which is an interesting segue for kombucha. It's kind of like capturing the consumer who's a coffee drinker, but giving them a healthier kombucha alternative to that. But you also see out in the market, non-kombucha related, you see energy drinks are now kind of crossing over with coffee as well. So. Some of the challenges, this kind of frames up well for the next 2 days, but some of the challenges that the industry faces. Consumer awareness, which we've touched on already, is still so low, but I guess, how long? Okay, all right. Consumer awareness is still quite low, but us as a group, collectively working together, we'll raise that. The kombucha supply chain doesn't exist, so we get a lot of brands can't find a route to market with chill supply chain. This is also an opportunity. The identity, what is kombucha, right? Like, I think that's always a conversation and a challenge. Hannah Crum is here today to talk about that from Kombucha Brewers International. And then technical expertise around alcohol, quality, scaling up. Sebastian is going to talk about that later, but also that's what we really focus on as a core part of our business in good culture. And then finally, I'm going to finish on this slide. So this is the list of what I consider my good ideas I'm not going to do because I'm too busy working on good culture. But if I wasn't doing good culture, these are probably some of the things I would be getting into. So supply chain opportunities, new opportunities for distribution. There's a really, to support all of you guys in brands and getting your product into the cafes and retailers. I think that's a business opportunity that someone should take on. There's so much opportunity to create amazing, new, exciting, young brands that represent you as people, as an industry, as from your region and your countries and your culture. I think I'm really excited to see what some of you guys come up with. Lots of opportunity for white labeling kombucha. Direct to consumer. Well, if the retailers won't deal with you, just go direct to your consumer. There's so much opportunity. We know a lot of successful kombucha brands who sell an enormous amount of kombucha online to their customers on a subscription model. This is a fantastic way to get your kombucha out there. If you sell it in can, it's better because it doesn't break in the post. Think about the different occasions. Just one statistic: 81% of all beverages sold in supermarkets, people take home to consume. Okay? Nobody in the kombucha industry is dealing with that. So everyone creates the format that's ready to drink right now. You buy it, you drink it straight away. I think there's enormous opportunity to create products that are for people to take home and enjoy in the occasion of with their family or celebratory. The kombucha on tap opportunities. Ultra premium kombucha. This is a really nice example of a company from called the Copenhagen Sparkling Tea Company. It's not a kombucha, but it leads into kind of the kombucha world. I think there's a really nice opportunity for a crossover from like a champagne to a kombucha with like mature flavors that people can enjoy as an alternative to alcohol. And then, alternatives to alcohol, wine, beer, and cider as well. That's it. I don't have time for Q&A now, I guess. But thank you very much.